We didn't hear about that yesterday, but he brought the cowherd boys and the cows, not calves, but cows, back to life by the merciful nectar of his glance, just by looking at them, by his merciful glance. And this is described so often in the poems of the Goswamis of Vrindavan, is that please, their request is, please place your merciful glance on me. Because in that way, you will bring me back to life. Because now, practically speaking, I'm a dead body. I move, I eat, I sleep, I do this and that, but there is no real life in me. Because the life of a soul is Krishna and his relationship with Krishna. So without our relationship with Krishna being awakened, practically we are dead. This is described in the beginning of the second canto of the Bhagavatam. Without seeing the beautiful form of Krishna, our eyes are compared to the eyes of, I heard someone say it, the eyes of a peacock. And our lungs, even though they are breathing in and out, they are compared to the bellows. There's no life there. And our ears, sarpabile. And speaking about sarpabile, the ears of a snake, they don't really work. But we will also start our Krishna Katha and speak about a snake whose name was... You don't know the name of the black snake who was in the Yamuna? Do you know? Kaliya, yes, very good. When Krishna understood that the water of the Jamuna was being polluted by the black serpent whose name was, Lord Krishna took action against him and made him leave the Jamuna and go elsewhere. And thus the water became purified. Now this is a summary, Srila Prabhupada's summary of the first verse of the 16th chapter. He tells the whole pastime, including Srila Sukadeva Goswami tells the entire pastime, including the conclusion, the ending, because he made him, Krishna made the snake Kaliya leave the Jamuna and go elsewhere. And thus the water again became purified. Now, when this story was being narrated by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit became eager to hear more and more about Krishna's childhood pastimes. He inquired from Sukadeva Goswami how Krishna chastised Kaliya, because he drove him away from the Yamuna. But how did he do that? He wanted to hear that, because Krishna sometimes performs activities just like an ordinary boy, but sometimes he shows his unlimited powers, bhumna. So, how did he chastise Kaliya, who had been living in the water for many, many years? Deep in the water of the Jamuna. Actually, Maharaj Parikshit was becoming more and more enthusiastic to hear the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. And therefore, his inquiry, his question, was made with great interest. Sukadeva Goswami, he began his narration, he began telling this pastimes as follows. Now pay close attention, because we're going to have an exam right after, okay? I just put you in complete anxiety, yes? we won't have an exam. And even if we did, you would definitely do well. So this is the pastime that he narrated. Within the river Jamuna, there was a great lake. And in that lake, the black serpent Kaliya used to live. And because of his poison, the whole area was so contaminated that it emanated a poisonous vapor. The Bhagavatam will describe how the waters of the Yamuna, where Kaliya was boiling because of the poison, the bish. And it was emanating a poisonous vapor. What does vapor mean? Yes, exactly. Very good. See, I told you you would do very well on the exam. A poisonous gas came from the Yamuna 24 hours a day. How many hours are there in a day? Very good. Experts. And if a bird happened to even pass, how do you do the bird mudra? How do you do that? Like something like that. Okay. Even if a bird would fly over the Yamuna, it would immediately die because of the vapors and fall down in the water. Due to the poisonous effect of the Jamuna's vapors, the trees and the grass near the banks of the Jamuna had all dried up. Lord Krishna, he saw the effect of the great serpent's poison. The whole river that ran before Vrindavan was now deadly. Krishna, who advented himself just to kill all undesirable elements in the world, he immediately climbed up a big, what kind of tree? Kadamba tree on the bank of the Jamuna. Prabhupada says, the Kadamba is a tree bearing round yellow flowers that is generally only seen in the Vrindavan area. And after climbing to the top of the tree, Krishna tightened his belt cloth and he began flapping his arms like a wrestler. And then he jumped into the poisonous lake. So we won't read more from the Krishna book right now, but we'll read the verses from the Bhagavatam that describe what Prabhupada has just summarized. So Sukadev Goswami, Sri Sukha Uvacha. Sukadev Goswami, he said, Vilokya Dushitam Krishnam. Now this is very interesting. Vilokya Dushitam Krishnam, Krishna, Krishna, Hina, Vibhu. How many times is the word Krishna mentioned there? Did you hear 3 times? But there are different meanings to the word Krishna in each of those times. Vilokya Dushitam Krishnam. When Krishna saw, Dushitam means the contaminated. Krishnam here means the Jamuna. And then Krishna, Krishna Hina Vibhu. The third Krishna is Krishna Ahina, the black serpent, whose name was Kaliya, Vilokya. When Krishna saw the poisonous water of the Jamuna that had been contaminated, poisoned so in such a deadly way by the black serpent Kaliya, Vibhu, he is all powerful. Tasya Vishuddham Anivichan Sarpam Tan Udavashayat. He decided to drive away this serpent from the Yamuna. Sarpam tam udavasayat. He was going to change his residence. And he was going to, anicca means he desired. And whatever Krishna desires is going to happen. He has one Shakti called Ichcha Shakti that fulfills its business, its service rather, is to fulfill all the desires of Krishna. Now we have our desires, but we don't have that kind of a Shakti that fulfills it, and therefore our desires become very frustrated. And the influence specifically of which mode of material nature increases our desires? Passion, Rajagun. This is one of the specific qualities of Rajagun. It increases our desires. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And not only that, I want this and that too. But because we are not Vibhu, like Krishna is Vibhu. Vibhu means, in this case, unlimitedly powerful. And because we have no Ichcha Shakti, a potency that fulfills our desires, the increase of our desires causes us not an increase of happiness, but an increase of frustration. Therefore, because Rajagun increases our desires, and our desires increase our frustration because we cannot fulfill them, therefore, rather than cultivating the mode of passion, devotees, a whole lifestyle is meant to cultivate sattva gun, the mode of goodness, because sattvam sanjayate jnanam. From sattva gun comes knowledge, it comes peacefulness, and self-satisfaction. Self-satisfaction means satisfied within. And increasing our material desires means the attempt is there continuously to find more and more things external to us, outside of us, thinking that they will make us happy. But rather, as we were saying, it simply increases our frustration. So, Krishna, he desired Anu Ichan. He desired that the serpent be removed. He moves his residence, and he decided that the Yamuna would again become purified. So here is the BBT translation over here. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing that the Yamuna river had been contaminated by the black snake Kaliya, desired to purify the river, and thus the Lord banished him. Banished means sent him away. He sent him away from the Yamuna. So this is actually, Sukadeva Goswami first speaks this summary. The first verse is a summary of the Kaliya pastime. Now why has he done this? Because there is so much suffering attached to this pastime. Now when we hear it, perhaps we don't suffer, because we hear it with a great distance between ourselves, our hearing process. We look at our watch or of course nowadays no one has watches. We take out our mobile phone, how much more time is left, this and that. But Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit were not like that at all. They could not tolerate hearing about Krishna's suffering. And later on, when Krishna, when it describes, when Sukadeva describes how Krishna went deep into the waters of the Yamuna to chastise Kaliya, Sukadeva is thinking, oh, this is going to be so difficult for Krishna. How is he going to remove Kaliya from this? He's such a powerful serpent. And he's going to undergo so much difficulty. So he's feeling some pain, not for himself, because hearing the pastimes are amrita, as it will describe. It is nectar. But the nectar, the sweetness, even the ecstasy, takes the form of a feeling of unhappiness. Not that I am suffering or I am in difficulty, because in material consciousness means that I am the center. This is the specific action of ahankar, a false ego. We perceive ourselves as the center of existence. But the residents of Vrindavan, they were not like that at all. They saw nothing but Krishna as the center. And even more than them being disturbed by thinking that Krishna was going to suffer, they were even more disturbed by the thought that the Brajbasis, who loved Krishna more than they loved their own life, were going to see him enwrapped in the coils of the snake. Who could tolerate a beloved, someone that we love, enwrapped in the coils of a snake? What mother, what father, what friend, what beloved could tolerate that without being in complete anxiety? And in this situation, Krishna was in the Yamuna. Later the Bhagavatam will describe how Mother Yashoda, she was trying to get into the waters of the Yamuna to rescue. Nanda Maharaj was trying to enter these poisonous waters. They didn't care for their own lives. Their bodies had its own will. They could not tolerate seeing Krishna. They were going to jump into the water. But what saved Mother Yashoda from jumping into the water was that her anxiety of seeing Krishna caught by the coils of the snake caused her to faint, and she would have died on the spot, except that the other ladies saying, "Oh, Krishna's just coming out now, don't worry," and they began pouring in her ear Krishna Katha, and that kept her alive. And Nanda Maharaj and all the other men, cowherd men, the gopas, they would have entered also into the water. But Balaram, he smiled. And they knew that no one cared more about Krishna than Balaram. And if Balaram was smiling in such a difficult circumstance, they knew that, okay, Balaram's smiling, therefore it will have that Krishna won't be harmed. So this summary verse is explained by Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, because he wanted to just place this before him, and then if Maharaj Parikshit didn't ask more details about the pastime, he would have gone on to another pastime. But Maharaj Parikshit, he immediately wanted to hear more about this, because Srila Sukadeva Goswami was thinking that he is so desirous to hear about Krishna that his heart, and I so desire to speak about Krishna, that his heart and my heart are one. And this is actually how the transmission of the Bhagavatam occurs in its most proper way. When the speaker is not me, but someone who loves Krishna, who is enwrapped in Krishna's pastimes, and the hearers are similarly in that mood. And then by that kind of transmission between the very qualified speaker and the very qualified hearer, Krishna is immediately realized by that. Immediately he is present in that. So Sukadeva thought that Maharaj Parikshit's, his interest, his heart is the same as mine. And therefore, suffering pastime, or the cowherd boys just playing in the forest and wrestling as they take care of the cows, just joyful playing, it is the same. So therefore, Sukadev will gradually speak the remainder of this pastime. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he makes a very nice point about, because Krishna, Tasya Vasudam Anvichan, that Krishna wanted to, he desired, Icham, he desired to purify the waters of the Jamuna. And there were many reasons for this, for his desire, and to drive Kali away. Because he wanted to be merciful to Kaliya also. And he also wanted to purify, and this will be shown later, how his chastisement of Kaliya, and practically he brought him to the point of death. It was actually the greatest mercy. Which is such an interesting point in its own, because sometimes, because Kaliya, when Krishna was dancing upon his heads, he wasn't thinking that this is the greatest mercy. He was suffering because Krishna was kicking his heads one by one. Every time Kaliya would raise one of his hoods, Krishna would jump on and kick it, ta-tan, ta-tan, ta-tan. Kick it again and again, and Kaliya was almost dead from this. So in that difficulty, actually was born the greatest mercy. And the greatest mercy, or the greatest fortune for Kaliya, was that actually Tavangri Renus Parishara Kara, that although Kaliya did not have the adhikar, the qualification to be touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, yet Krishna was so merciful that he touched him with his feet anyway. And then a second benediction or goodness that Krishna desired to come from this was that the Yamuna water would be purified. And as a result of that, and one could think of it in terms of today's condition of the Jamuna also, the result of that the Yamuna would again be suitable for people from all over the world, Srila Sanatana Goswami says, could come and drink those pure waters and become purified by it. So these were the reasons that Srila Sanatana Goswami said that Krishna, Vishudam, he desired to purify the waters of the Yamuna and to drive Kaliya away. Now here is the second verse, and the second verse describes the reaction again of Maharaj Parikshit upon hearing the whole pastime. In the summary, he wants to hear more. He is so eager to hear more. He wants to hear every detail that he can hear. Because he's about to leave this world, he's about to die. And his interest is simply in Krishna. He has no more interest in his kingdom. He has no interest in anything but Krishna. And he wants the nectar coming from the mouth of Sukadev Goswami to enter his heart and fill his consciousness through the process of hearing. So, Sri Raja Uvacha. What does Sri Raja Uvacha mean? Excuse me? Yes, Parikshit Maharaj Uvacha. He replied, yes. So katam anta jale agada nya grihad bhagavan nahim savai bahu yugavasam yatasid viprakatyatam. So he replies by immediately asking some questions. He is not a passive, sleepy listener. His consciousness is awake, and what Sukadev Goswami has said has raised some questions in his heart. in his mind. And he says, Katam antar jale aghadhe. How that Kaliya was living, aghadhe means so deep, unfathomably deep, in the depths of the Yamuna. Because the Yamuna, at that place, our acharyas describe, in some places, in this lake, this Kaliya Ridda, it was 1 yojana in length, in width rather, not in length, but in width. 1 yojana means about 8 miles, and kilometers, how many is that? 12. 12 kilometers wide, not even long. And it was unfathomably, that means ununderstandably deep. And Kaliya was in a cave, some acharyas say, in a cave within the Yamuna, in the depths of the Yamuna, or by his powers, he had a house where he could keep the water away. So he's saying, Katam antar jale, he was in this unfathomably deep. Now that's a big word. You know what unfathomably means? I said it. You cannot understand it by your intelligence, how deep it was. Ununderstandably deep. That's very, very deep. So he was in, so he said, how, when he's living so deeply within the waters of the Jamuna, Nyagrahad Bhagavan Ahim, how did the Supreme Lord subdue him? Subdue him means, how did he control him? How did he chastise him? How did he remove him from the Yamuna? And this is such a wonderful question, because Krishna removed him from the Yamuna in such an amazing way, in a way that no one could have guessed. Because if there's some unwanted guest in your house, the last thing you're going to do is dance with him. So Krishna is not only going to dance upon his heads, but he's going to turn it into a dramatic dancing performance. And Krishna, who is the most expert dancer, he's going to dance in such a wonderful way, because Krishna does and he does things in such elegant and such unique ways. So Krishna wants to dance. He wants to show his skill in dancing. And he wants to drive the snake who is poisoning the water, whose name is Kaliya. And he does it in such a way, and Maharaj Parikit's asking, in what way is he going to do this? This is the question of someone very eager to hear. And he asks another question. Now this question is also very interesting. Savai Bahu Yuga Vasam. He said that Kaliya has been living in there for Bahu Yuga, for many, many, many yugas, a very great amount of time. So how is it that happened? And the question is asked by perhaps Srila Sanatana Goswami. Since Sukadev Goswami didn't mention that he's been living in the Yamuna for yuga after yuga, how did he know? And the answer was, this was common knowledge, that everyone knew that Kaliya had always been there. And this is going to be described, how Kaliya came to live in the Yamuna is described in the next chapter, in the 17th chapter. And also in the first verse, Krishna was called Vibhu, which means what? Vibhu. There was a great devotee who served in Krishna Balaram Mandir, Vibhu Chaitanya, means very, very powerful. So this means, Vibhu means that Krishna was very powerful, and that although he was acting like a cowherd boy and enjoying these cowherd boy pastimes, at any moment he could exhibit his powers, because he was always all powerful. Like when the king is in his private palace, his home, when the king's in his home and he's wrestling with his son, who is 10 years old. 10? Is that correct? No, how old? How old are you? Yes, 12. He's wrestling with his 12-year-old son, the king. And he's letting the 12-year-old son defeat him and throw him down. Oh, but you're so strong. But because he's being defeated by his boy, it doesn't mean that he's not the king anymore. And the king at any time can call upon his kingly powers and say, armies, attack. And he could say to someone, off with his head. He still has all his powers, even though he's playing with his son in his house. So similarly, although Krishna is playing as a cowherd boy, still he always has all his powers available. Vibhu Chaitanya. So these were the questions that he's asking. Raise your hand if you remember one of the questions. Yes.
How is that Kaliya was living for so long in the depths of Yamuna?
Yes. How is it that Kaliya was living so long in the first? Thank you. How did he chastise him and make him leave? Very interesting questions. Now, Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Prickett says one more verse over here. Brahman Bhagavatas Tasya Bhumna Swachanda Vartina Gopal Udara Charitam Kas Tripyet Amrita Jusham. So, O Brahmana, he says, the Supreme Lord, who is Bhumna, who is unlimited, but Swachanda Vartina, he acts according to his desires. He acts according to his own desires. He's unlimited, and he's all powerful. And he's omniscient, that means Sarvagya. He knows everything. His power is unlimited. That means he can do exactly as he wants at any time. He's free to act as he wants. Bhumna means, again, unlimited. So when this all-powerful person acts, we can be sure it's going to be very, very wonderful. This is what Maharaj Prickett says. So therefore, Gopala Udara Charitam, the magnificent, magnanimous, very generous, wonderful pastimes of Gopal, his activities, his charitam, who can ever Tripyeta Amritam Jusham, who could become tired of hearing them? So this was his response. Now just imagine the enthusiasm that Sukadeva Goswami, who was so exalted in the pleasure of his life, was speaking about Gopal, about Krishna, about Sri Nandanandana. This put him in touch with Krishna by speaking about Krishna. And then to have Sukadev Goswami in this mood, wanting to hear more and more and asking such intelligent questions that would cause Srila Sukadev Goswami to think deeply about Krishna. And there's some parts of the 10th canto where when Sukadev Goswami, when Maharaj Parikshit asks a question, even early in the earlier cantos too, it causes Sukadev Goswami to think deeply, to go very internal, very inside of himself. And he goes into ecstasy. And there's one comment probably by Srila Sukadev, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he describes when Sukadev, one time he did that, and all the people surrounding, they took out their kartals and they started playing very loudly, just to bring him back to consciousness so he would speak to Maharaj Parikshit, who after all was very soon going to leave. Oh, I said yesterday I was going to describe that. Yes? But also in Hindi, yesterday is what? Kal. So also that's tomorrow. Okay. So here's this, O Brahmana, the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead freely acts according to his desires. Such an interesting point. We act because we want something or we need something. So we are pushed to act. But what causes Krishna to act? What causes Krishna to perform his pastimes? He has no needs. He has his Ichcha Shakti. All his desires are immediately fulfilled, but yet he acts. He does so many things. Now, what is the cause of that? It is not what causes me. When I act, I want something. And when I want something, it shows that I don't have it. But what is there that Krishna doesn't have? But yet he acts. He does so many things. So what is the engine that's driving him to act? Very interesting point that comes out of the fact that Krishna is, he acts according swachanda vartina. He acts according to his desires. And what is it that causes him to act? What is it that causes Krishna to act? Yes, yes. So many devotees are answering. How nice. Because he wants to have exchanges with his devotees, especially in Vrindavan. Oh, it's so hard to read and speak into the mic at the same time. Because if the mic was about this size, it would be a lot easier. But if I do that. Okay, we'll end now. And thank you. We have 1 minute of questions or comments. Thank you. Any comments? Yes.
You said that when Maharaj Parikshit was asking how Kali is so long, Maharaj Parikshit was asking how the circle Kali is so long in the Yamuna, and he commented that
No,
heard this story before?
no. It was common knowledge, our acharyas say, that Kaliya had been living there for a long time. But actually, it's specifically said by one acharya that he didn't know this pastime. But yet, he knew that Kaliya had been living there. Common knowledge. But another acharya gave another reason, that he understood, he logically decided that for there to be so much poison there, and that's what we're going to hear in the next class, more about what the Yamuna was like. It was so filled with poison. Did anyone ever take chemistry courses in school? And they take, did you ever, when you take sulfuric acid and put water with that? Are you a chemist? There we go. Where is what happens when you put, it'll explode practically, and that's what the Kaliya lake was like. And did you ever see different acidic formulas that were like boiling just by their own power? That's what the Kaliya lake was like. It was boiling due to the poison. So Maharaj Parikshit thought he must have been here a very long time to accumulate so much poison. So that was another reason that was given.
I have one more question.
Okay, and then we'll end.
I have experienced that I hear this pastime already, not first time. So maybe in the beginning I was really afraid what would happen, and I was more concerned and more in anxiety about Krishna. But now, when I hear it again and again, and I know what will happen,
Yes.
and I don't feel so much anxiety. And how
Yes.
eternal associates with Krishna, they
You don't feel the kind of anxiety they feel, you're saying, because you already know the ending. Yes. But what we want to do, because there's probably every single person in this room knows this pastime, and just to make sure, I read it first from the Krishna book, so we already know what's going to happen. So in the material world, in material stories, as soon as you know what's going to happen, it's boring. If you know the ending, it's going to be boring. But when we look at Krishna's pastimes, instead of trying to read them faster and faster and faster to get to the end to find out how Krishna saves the day, and it's going to be boring for you anyway because you know that Krishna is always going to win. But if we just watch in a more subtle way, in a deeper way, how Krishna acts, and see Krishna's pastimes through the point of view of the great acharyas and the great teachers, then we will learn we will see the personality of Godhead, the Supreme Personality, and how He acts, and how He deals, and how He dances, and we will also see, because He is called Ashraya, the Vishya, the object of love. And then we will also see the Ashraya Tattva, the ones who possess all the love. And if we watch how they act, and if we can enter deeply, like, into their mood by their association through hearing, then our heart can be very, very deeply touched. And although we may not be able to travel very fast on the road of bhakti by hearing the comments of the acharyas, the great acharyas, then our speed can increase greatly. And the example that Srila Prabhupada gives is that, and you see this in Vrindavan. And what city are you from? What city?
I'm from Riga, Latvia.
Okay, from Latvia. You won't see this in Latvia probably, but you'll see it in Vrindavan. You'll see someone on a bicycle pedaling along, and then he holds onto a bus. And when he holds onto the bus, his ability to go fast increases so much. So similarly, when we hold on to the feet and the moods of the different acharyas and their comments and their songs, then by holding on to them, we can by their association, our speed can increase in our devotional service. But a very good question, very good question. Thank you. Okay. I was going to end, but because you have a question.
If Kalia was living in the river Yamuna for so much of years, was that lake poisoned from that time?
Was the poison for that time? It was building up more and more and more and more and more. That's how one of the acharyas explained how Maharaj Parikshit knew. There was so much poison, it was boiling. And Krishna said, enough. Now he will leave. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhakti